meeting to order at 10:05. We have just one item on the agenda, and that is a series of open records requests that we have received. December 12th, we have one from Denton Law Firm representing Bacon Farmer and Workman. All of the trustees have seen that, and then there's a copy here as well. And then we have two actually additional ones, both from WKMS. The initial one just asked for correspondence between 3 of the trustees, and then the second one added the 2 remaining trustees to that request. So in terms of the request, they're all asking for basically the same kind of information. So complying with one, we can comply with both of them with the same round of information essentially. The WKMS request does include some correspondence involving Judge Larry Elkins, or former Judge Larry Elkins, and our current Judge Executive Kenny Imes, and those are being handled by the county attorney, the response to those 2 parts. But the parts that involve the trustees, we will have to respond to those and provide that information. So at this point, I asked Manon to contact Adam Stepner, Wolterman and Dusing. They're a firm in Northern Kentucky that we've worked with previously on some issues. We have not worked with any local attorneys, and I will tell you that local attorneys were not willing to work with the library on any of these issues that came up. So we can pursue that if you would like us to, but we needed to get a response within the required 3 days by law. The response from Adams, Stepner, Wolterman, and Dusing through Corey Gam met that requirement for us by responding to Denton. We haven't responded to WKMS, but we'll need to do so by tomorrow. But just basically saying that because of the breadth of these requests, that we needed additional time to put those requests together. And then they've outlined, we've got a letter in here outlining a process that we can use to submit our emails and what's been asked for to them. They'll come through everything, redact anything that's not pertinent to the request, and then forward that on to the agencies making those requests. So I'm going to stop talking at this point and allow the rest of you to weigh in with questions, action, whatever it is that Riley.
I think the gentleman's name is Mark at the Regents Bank. I just want to
Frederick.
clarify. He has contacted me by phone asking me to make a visit if I had wanted to. I have not at this point. I figure maybe it would be best before, as an entire board, or I wanted to do something with the board, not just be myself. So I just want to let you know, as the president, that I have been contacted by, I forget the gentleman's last name.
Frederick.
Okay, Mark, to take a visit. And at this point, I have declined to do so.
So next actions, I mean, we need to respond. All of us are going to need to send the correspondence that we've been asked for. I mean, this is not something we can deny, that we can't do. We're required to respond by law to send anything that we've got, and to do so, again, the initial issue within 3 days, and then with Corey Gam, he's basically saying, you know, if because it's over the holidays as well, they've said that they think they can have everything by January 4th, which would mean getting, all of us getting our stuff to them by the 27th of December. emails, text messages, and so on. I know that Mr. Kennedy has provided his. We've not gotten anything yet from Dr. Rose or Mr. Walker, and I don't think, have you sent yours in,
I
Ronnie?
sent an email to Director McNaughton saying I didn't have any personal emails from any board member or the director, but I'd be happy to make copies of the general stuff that we've all received, but
Well, and the general ones will be in my emails that I submit as well, because they've been.
But I've not texted any individual board member. I did text Director Manon a few minutes ago telling her.
We saw that, tractors.
But other than that, I don't have any other information.
What I provided was up to the point. Now, since the point where I've gotten emails regarding this issue, are we gonna be required now to go back and submit those?
Oh, if you haven't gotten anything, Mark, that was just individually you, if it's like been part of the chain, that will be part of the ones that I submit,
That's what
so
I
that should cover that, you
Okay.
know. But if you have anything outside of that pertains, then
Well,
yeah, we
the
would
other
need
aspect that I
to.
wanted to ask is, what about just general public? People that email us, saying, my suggestion is, or.
Right, I don't
Because
think
that
that falls.
doesn't address, because I've got several from just general public.
Right.
In fact, I probably have more from general public than
Than anything else.
anything else.
So basically what they're asking for is anything between, for example, if we look at number one, anything between me and you
Yes.
and any of the other board members, you and any of the library employees, you and anyone from Friends of the Public Library, anyone who uses an email address ending in CallawayCountyLibrary.org, anything between you and Mark and Valerie Fredericks, or any that reference that, any that reference the bank. So those, I guess, could fall under referencing the bank or that property or whatever. It probably would be best to err on the side of caution there and submit those, just for the simple fact, and then if Mr. Gam decides that those aren't really relevant to the request, they won't submit those any further. That would stop at his office.
All right, now you said that no local attorney would agree to deal with this?
In the past, that's been the case. I did try to contact Mark Blankenship, but he was out. So, given the time frame, I spoke with Audrey and we contacted Adams.
Well, when does Blankenship's term as Commonwealth Attorney end?
I don't know.
I think he's still in office, is he not?
Judge Adams.
Until, what, December the 31st?
First or late, or something.
Well, I think that's something that needs to be explored again. I was floored when I saw the name Corey Gam. I'd never seen that name before, never heard that name before. This law firm that he's a part of, I've never heard of it. We're forced to converse over long distance. I like to sit down face to face. I have a problem with using them. And I realized that time was important, but this issue, I guess the die is cast already at this point.
We had 3 days to get a response back to them. I mean, and that's out of our hands, and when we couldn't, when there was nobody, I mean, we made the best decision that we could, that was available to us at the time.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. But I think we need to look at it, for not only this issue, but, the future issues. I would much prefer to have a local attorney. One that can be contacted quickly and, have a conversation with face to face. I say this not because I want to help any particular one of them. I know some people like to find something sinister in virtually everything. It is true that a lot of the local attorneys have been my students, but at this point, they can stand on their own without my help. I want to make that clear. All right, now, Madam President, you have indicated then, you see, one of the questions that I had was, do they need 5 or 6 copies of the same email?
I think that's the whole point of going through the attorney. They will sort through and they'll decide if one involves everyone, then but I think to protect ourselves, that we send whatever we each have individually.
All right, do we print them out?
They would prefer them electronically. Mr. Kennedy printed his, and then we just scanned those into one PDF document to be able to send that electronically.
Okay, so you're saying they would prefer the electronic form?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that would allow us to get it to them more quickly as
Right.
well.
Are you suggesting, Madam President, that we all send all of the documents, including the ones that are sent to all of us by you?
Yeah. That's what they're asking for, and then they can do the work of weeding through those. I say that's what we do to make sure that we've complied with the letter of the law. Because otherwise, it takes it can be done as easily as going in and saving those emails to a folder on your hard drive, and then zipping that folder up and sending that directly to Manon to put into one, or to put into a Dropbox, and then they have access to that.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation. You can comply if you want to go with and look at things and say, okay, Audrey's probably sending this one, I'm not gonna send it, that's your decision. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do this or whatever. I'm going to send anything I've got that applies here.
Okay. I don't know that I've got anything that, in terms of internal communications like that, wasn't something that was sent to me by you.
You don't have anything between you and any of the other that reference
I have not done.
the bank building, that reference the,
Nope. I've got a hard copy of it all, but my wife has all of it in her computer also. But it's not organized the way that.
we don't have to, they'll sort through it all there at the office, is my understanding. They'll lay them all out and look through everything and decide what's applicable to the request, what's not. They'll redact any portions of emails that aren't applicable and then put all that together into a single document in response, is my
Okay.
understanding of the process.
Okay.
Are you in agreement that you're gonna send it to me or to Audrey by the 27th?
That gives them time to sift through everything and have it by the 4th, is when they've told Denton that they would respond.
I'll send everything that I have to both of you.
Okay.
It was general information, but within this time frame, that's not a problem for them, so.
You already have everything I have. I'll review my records and make sure that I don't have something, a copy of something that is germane to this, but I'm fairly certain that I've already given you copies of everything. That being said, you know, I'm not really too concerned about protecting myself. I've not done anything that I have to protect myself from, so. That being the case, I'll review everything I've got.
Sure.
And if, I'll even give you what I've gotten since I gave you what I got, which was germane to this meeting.
Right, and like I said, I'll be putting a copy of that one, Mark, so if you don't want to
I won't worry about that.
do that one, I'll
go
take
back
care of
through
it
my
for sure.
public- I'll go back through the ones that I've gotten from the public and make sure that there's not something in there that's germane to this issue. And if there are, I'll make copies of it, get it to you within 3 days. Merry Christmas. Can I put a bow on it?
The only thing that might be different, Mark, that you may need to go back and look at is if you've got anything between you and Judge Elkins, because the WKMS request does include him in that, so.
I'll check, but.
Okay.
Yeah, generally speaking, I don't
I
know
just,
how to explain that. I get a lot of emails,
yeah,
a lot, about anywhere from 50 to 100 a day. And I don't save all of that stuff. You know, I read and printed, I gave you copies of, because it was stuff that was between meetings. I thought, well, I better save this for the next meeting. And you've got those copies, so.
let me just offer this up as a general, ought to be a good rule of thumb. We were all given, and I understand if you've got multiple email accounts that can be an issue, but we all have Callaway County Library accounts, and that's what our Board of Trustees business, any of it ought to be conducted with, is that library, is that email account. And then just a reminder too, that on page 14 of our trustee manual, you know, we can only use that to provide information to each other. We can't discuss issues, we can't go, and it's really easy to do that unintentionally. To someone gives you, oh, here are the floor plans for that building, so that you'll have those, and then you're looking at them, you're like, oh, I have a question, and send that back. We have to make sure that we stop ourselves from doing that if it's going to lead to discussion. All of that kind of discussion has to happen at the meetings. That prevents a lot of this kind of stuff from happening in the future, if we keep those things in mind. So do we want to make a formal motion that we're going to comply with these requests and submit everything to Manon or I by the 27th, and then have Adams to handle that?
I'll make such a motion.
Wait. Dr. Rose.
hear.
Mr. Ramsey, has said that he will send, what he has by the 27th. Mr. Kennedy has sent his and said he will send the rest. I haven't heard from you.
I don't know that there is any rest. I'll review it.
Gotcha, yeah, if there is.
Dr. Rose or, Mr. Walker.
So just basically asking if you're going to comply.
I will make any efforts that I can.
I'm no lawyer, but I guess here's my question, and maybe Judge Arms, you might be able to answer this for me, I don't know, but if in the middle of going through all these emails, I have an email between, and this is hypothetical, me and another individual on the board, and I submitted my copy of it, but they didn't submit theirs and said they didn't have that. Are there any repercussions that are possible from that?
Madam President, I'm not an attorney either, but I think all that was, I'm assuming that, you know, in the course of them doing the due diligence and going through this, that those would pop out, but I don't think you're necessarily, have done wrong in not recognizing fiasco, just like everybody else, we put stuff in trash.
Right, okay.
We have multiple counts on our phones and, you know, keeping it sorted. I don't think there's, I mean, to go back to intent, and that's on way on down the road,
Okay.
so I don't think it'd be particularly.
I guess Dr. Rose, we come back to you at this point. Are you?
I'm undecided.
Okay.
One of the things that I did wonder about was why, and you've answered that question from WKMS, why the other two trustees were not.
Yeah, they sent an additional request yesterday, including us,
You know.
so. I don't have an answer as to why we were not included in the original one either. I think that you would have to go to the source for that, sir.
Well, I would say I consider this a simple case of harassment. And I think that we see, you know, I was thinking about the late President George H.W. Bush, and it was said that his greatest legacy was the privilege of public service. And I've always believed that, and it was for that reason why I actually volunteered to serve on this board. And we get this for thanks. And we get this ad in the paper that we should not use our position, or which said, among other things, that we should not use our position to help our friends. I mean, my goodness, what kind of people are we thought to be? Is that why you think that, or anyone thinks that I volunteered to serve on this board? If so, then who are these friends that I so want to help?
Well, the answer to that question, Dr. Rose, I think is fairly simple. It's not your friends that they're concerned about. It's a guy that I went to church with 10 years ago that happens to have been a real estate agent or a realtor who purchased a bank building. And then you happened, by happenstance, you ran into him downtown and you looked at the bank building because you just happened to be there and he invited you to. As a consequence of that, after you had looked at the bank building, then you contacted me and said, you ought to look at this. I met this guy and I said, I know him, he used to go to church with me. And as a consequence of that, I did what you asked me to do. I went down and looked at the bank building likewise and agreed with you that it might be a viable option to relocate this library in that bank building. As a consequence of that guy going to church with me 10 years ago,
We need to be really careful about our conversation, because the only item on the agenda is the open records
and I'm
request.
saying that the genesis of this open records request is the fact that I knew Mr. Mark Frederick. And I'm not ashamed of anything I've done, and I don't have anything to protect myself from, because if my mother owned that bank building, I would not pursue it if it weren't something that I thought was viable for this community. But that's the answer to your question. The question is not who your friends were, it's the potential of who my friends were, is the way I read it, because everything that I've seen pertains to me, and it's just that simple. I'm not concerned about this. I've been open. As a matter of fact, I've been open, and when we did the bank tour, as you well know, I told everybody that I knew Mr. Frederick, and I told everybody there that I knew him and he used to go to church with me. But I had no business interest with him, and I was not going to do anything about that bank building pertaining to helping him unload a dump, which is basically what they've said. That being said, I move to adjourn.
Wait, we've still got one more thing to check before we do that. So are you all okay with Adams sending the same response to because we have to reply to WKMS by tomorrow. That's our 3-day deadline. That we'll comply with this and follow the same, give us the same amount of time as the compliance with the Denton, request and that process. Is the board okay with us having them do that?
I second Riley's motion.
Well, what was that motion?
His motion,
We didn't get a motion yet, I don't think.
he tried to give one a while ago.
Right, but he didn't get it all out, so there's not a standing motion on the floor, but if he'd like to do that now.
Gwyneth, did you?
I didn't write anything down.
You did not write anything down? Okay. Well, yes, I make a motion that we comply with the same form of information that we did on the previous to WKMS and the Denton Law Firm if we need to for further.
Second.
So, Mr. Ramsey has moved and Mr. Kennedy has seconded a motion to comply with the open records request and to use Adams, Stepner, Walterman, and Dusing to facilitate those responses for us. All in favor, is there any additional discussion for that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Ayes have it and the motion carries. Is there any other action that any of you see that we need to take regarding these issues?
No, I still move to adjourn.
Well, I will comply.
And I'll second Mark's request to adjourn.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
With reluctance. And I would just say in addition, that these guys are not the only people who can retain an attorney. Keep that in mind.
So it's been moved by Mr. Kennedy, seconded, who had our second on that, I'm sorry, cause I missed it, by Mr. Ramsey, that we adjourn. Any discussion? Alright, let's vote, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, no? No, ayes have it, the motion carries, we're adjourning at 10:35.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll let you look.